Hello, this is Scott from Scott in the System, and today our guest is Scott de Varona, MBA Director of MiABLE Savings Program. Hello, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity to talk MiABLE.
How did you get involved with MiABLE?
Well, I'm in a unique situation. I work for the Michigan Department of Treasury, and when the MiABLE program was proposed in Michigan legislation, my boss at the time said, we need somebody who knows something about savings accounts, which I do. We need somebody who knows something about 529 programs, which I do. And we need somebody who knows something about Medicaid benefits. And everybody else in the room said, I have no experience with Medicaid. And I worked for Medicaid for 7 years. I worked on the Medicaid rewrite project for Champs and Bridges. So I know just enough about Medicaid to be a little bit dangerous. And they said, well, you know something about it. So that beats everybody else in the room. So we need you to take this program and run with it. And that's what I did. The legislation was proposed federally in 2014. The state of Michigan passed legislation in 2015, and we have a program starting in November of 2016. So it was a really robust achievement to have a program up and running inside of 2 years. But that's I mean, for lack of a better term, it was kind of random how I got involved with the program. It simply was my experience with Treasury and my experience with Medicaid happened to combine in this project.
Yeah. And just, I don't know if we're putting the cart before the horse here, but I wish to let my viewers know this is pretty much a nationwide program now, even though it's called something different according to each state, correct?
Right. The ABLE program is modeled after the very successful 529 education program. And the 529 education programs are sponsored by each individual state. So each state has its own program. We have to follow the same rules nationally. But the MiABLE program is Michigan's program. Ohio has its own program. Indiana, Illinois, they have their own ABLE programs as well. But in order for it to be a 529, which is an IRS qualification, it has to be sponsored by the individual state. So MiABLE is Michigan's answer to that proposal.
And because of the 529, that's what makes it go by state as opposed to a federally sponsored program.
Correct, exactly. Each state has the authority and basically can manage their own individual program. So, for instance, there are some differences between the Michigan program and the Ohio program. We have different investments options. Each state has the ability to create its own tax deductibility. So for contributions made to ABLE programs. So it's a chance for each state to put its own spin on what kind of rules they think will be the most advantageous for the people in their state. So it gives us an opportunity to have a homegrown program, which allows us to create a great program for Michigan residents.
Okay, without further ado, what is the MiABLE Savings Program exactly?
MiABLE is a 529 savings program, but it's just for individuals with disabilities. It lets them put up to $16,000 in an account that they can use for their disability-related expenses. So it's basically a way for the disabled population to save for the expenses that they're going to have because of the disability. One of the things that I like to tell people is that, for far too long, we've told the disabled population, stay broke. Don't ever have more than $2,000 in an account, or you're going to lose the eligibility for the benefits that you need because of that disability. Well, now you don't need to worry about that. Now you have a place where you can put money and it is sheltered so that you don't lose your eligibility for the benefits that you need. As I mentioned, it's been around since 2016. It's been a very successful program in Michigan, and we're really proud of the work that we've done so far. We still have a long way to go to inform this population that this product is available for them.
I wanted to ask you as well, what is the name of the form exactly we need to fill out that allows us to increase the cap from 16,000? I just filled that form out a couple months ago and it almost doubled my allowance.
That's correct. Yeah, the great thing about the ABLE program is that it's so new that they are making tweaks and adjustments to it that allow it to be an even better program. And what Scott is referring to is the ABLE Savers credit, which allows individuals who have income to put additional money in their ABLE program. And for the state of Michigan, for this calendar year, 2022, ABLE Savers can contribute $12,880 in addition to the $16,000 that they're allowed. So in order to do that, the best way to get that is to go to our website, and under the Forms tab, you have to fill out a form called, I'm looking for it right now, I apologize, the Earned Income Contribution Certification Form. And it's a form used to certify that you have an annual income, and as such, you can increase your contributions to the ABLE program. So it's a great way, as I mentioned, for people to shelter their assets and create a way for them to pay for those benefits that they need.
When you say earned income, are you referring to about disability or working as well?
Any form of income can be utilized to qualify for that additional earned income contribution. So it can be wages. So if you have a job and you get a W-2 and you get a paycheck, you can do that. Okay. If you are paid commission, you can use that as well. If you have the proceeds of a business, if you own your own business, your own micro enterprise, and you have business income, you can use that income to qualify for an additional contribution as well. So it's not just if you have a job, it's if you have any form of income, you can increase your contributions to an ABLE program.
Who is eligible for it?
Great question. Anyone who became disabled prior to age 26 is eligible to open an ABLE account. You must have, first and foremost, you can't have an ABLE account open anywhere else. You're only allowed one ABLE account, but you must have had the disability before age 26. So if you become disabled after age 26, you cannot avail yourself of this program. It does not matter how old you are today. If you're in your 80s today, but you've been disabled since birth or since you were a teenager, you can still open and fund an ABLE account, even if you're in your 80s. So it doesn't matter how old you are today. It matters how old you were when the disability happened. And as long as it was under age 26, you can open an ABLE account in Michigan.
Hello, my name is Scott and I have lived independently now for 30 years with cerebral palsy. Thank you for visiting my channel Scott in the System. I have a podcast by the same name. I talk to mostly nonprofit services for the disabled community. I also like to talk about being an entrepreneur affiliate marketer. If you would like to be on my podcast, you can email me at scott@scottinthesystem.com. Be sure to visit my website as at www.scottinthesystem.com. Please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel as well. Thank you for dropping by and have a blessed day.
Interesting. So what do those do for option-wise over 26?
Well, that's a great question, Scott. Let's face it, when they proposed this legislation, the intent was to help people with disabilities, not just people whose disability happened before age 26. There are a number of people who currently right now cannot participate in this program because their disability happened later in life. A number of disabled veterans, individuals who develop multiple sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. A number of those conditions don't manifest themselves until people are in their late 20s. So they have proposed legislation to change the age range from 26 to 46. It hasn't passed yet. I suspect that it will pass. We have a number of co-sponsors. We have a number of legislators who have already signed on to support this legislation. It just hasn't passed yet. So I ask your viewers, if you have anyone who is so inclined, please talk to your elected representative about either voting for or sponsoring or co-sponsoring the ABLE Age Adjustment Act. We think that here in Michigan, just Michigan alone, there are about 300,000 people that are eligible for this program today. However, if they change the age of onset from 26 to 46, we think that amount goes between 7 and 750,000 people in Michigan who are now eligible for the program. So the more people who are eligible, the more people can participate. The more people who participate, the more assets that we can shelter from being utilized for these services. So the bottom line and the answer to your question is anyone who became disabled before age 26 right now, and I hope soon that that legislation will change and allow anyone who becomes disabled after or before age 46 will then be allowed to participate in this program.
If that were to occur, that would allow other individuals as well to be more independent.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at it like this, the whole intent of this program is to help individuals become more financially self-sufficient. And the intent is to help as many people as possible. Congress limited it, like they do, to make sure that the program was going to be viable. And I think we've proven that the program is viable. There are 4,000 people in Michigan who are utilizing this. There are over 20,000 people in the United States already utilizing this type of account. There's $1 billion in MiABLE assets already throughout the United States. So we know it's viable. We know it works. We know people are using it. So let's try and get as many people as possible to start using this, and let's expand the age limit. That's my take.
How do they apply?
All of our information is available on our website. It's www.miable.org. All of the program information, including webinars where I discuss the basics of the program. There's a FAQ, frequently asked questions, where you can get all of our program information, investment information, the costs associated with having these accounts. It's all available on our website, www.miable.org. We also have links to our customer service representatives. So if you want to call and talk to somebody on the phone, you can call. If you want to email, you can email them as well. So because this population has never had a product like this, it was really difficult for us to determine how best to provide it to as many people as possible. It would have been great if we could have partnered with a bank or a credit union. The problem is that there are a number of people who cannot get transportation to a brick and mortar bank. We still have issues with connectivity, especially in the rural areas, the Upper Peninsula, where people don't have as adequate internet access. So unfortunately, that's the methodology by which we have people get the information, is through our website. But we're always looking at ways to help increase the awareness of this program.
Okay. What could they use the money for?
Great question. You know, that's the number one question that we get. Okay, if I open this account, what can I use the money for? The money must be used for qualified disability expenses, or as we like to call them, QDE. Qualified disability expenses are meant to be as broad as possible and includes the expenses of everyday living. We want people to use these accounts for whatever they need them for. But Congress was very specific, and they said, okay, we want it to be as broad as possible, but these are the things that we're talking about. So you can use your ABLE account to pay for education, just like you can use a 529 education account to pay for tuition, books, fees, computers, the costs of education. You can use your ABLE account to pay for those things as well. You can also use them to pay for things like housing. So you could use it to pay for rent, mortgage, utilities, garbage removal service, internet service fees, making modifications to a home to allow for easier accessibility. You can pay for those things out of an ABLE account. One of the issues that individuals with disabilities have in becoming employed or getting a better job is a lack of transportation. You could pay for transportation costs out of an ABLE account. And that doesn't just mean you could buy a car out of an ABLE account. You could pay for a bus pass. You could pay for Uber. You could pay for an AmbuCab. I had a webinar a few weeks ago where I talked to a gentleman who lived on Mackinac Island, and he had to take the ferry back and forth for his job. And he can use his ABLE account to pay those ferry costs. The bottom line is, if it costs money to move a person with a disability from one place to another, you can utilize your ABLE account to pay for those expenses. You can also use the ABLE account to pay for healthcare costs. So if you have to go to the hospital or pay a copay to a doctor's office visit, you can pay for those costs out of an ABLE account. You could purchase prescription drugs. You could purchase durable medical equipment like a walker or a wheelchair. You could purchase assistive technology devices like an iPad or an e-reader or an iPhone or the services associated to those iPhones. You could pay for the services of a service animal, whether that's a dog, a cat, or an iguana. It doesn't matter what you're using the services for, but the bottom line is the services of an animal to help an individual with a disability are allowable expenses as well. You could pay for employment training. So if there is a class or a resume writing clinic that would help a person with a disability get a better job or a job, you can pay for those services out of an ABLE account. If you need to have someone come into the home to help with the activities of everyday living, cooking, cleaning, bathing, those types of things, you can pay for those services out of an ABLE account. If you need to pay for a CPA, an accountant, or an attorney, or any other type of professional who might need the assistance, who a beneficiary might need the assistance of, you could pay for those services out of an ABLE account. And you no longer have to prepay for funeral costs. You can pay for those expenses after the beneficiary passes away. You can pay for funeral. You can pay for the cremation. You can pay for all of those services out of the ABLE account. They want these accounts to be as flexible as possible because, let's face it, an individual who who's blind is going to have different expenses from an individual with autism, is going to have different expenses from a person who's in a wheelchair, or from a person who's deaf, or from a person who has multiple sclerosis or ALS, or any host of different conditions that could lead to a disability. The bottom line is they want these accounts to be as flexible and as utilized as possible. Now, I'm going to add one more question because this is a question I constantly get. What shouldn't I use this money for?
That was my next one. Yep,
that was your next one. Because like I said, Congress actually said, we want this to be utilized. We want this to be as flexible as possible. But I do have a handful of things that I advise my clients. Please don't buy these things with your ABLE account. Things like lottery tickets, things like trips to the casino, or alcohol or tobacco. Jewelry is another great example. You're going to have a hard time justifying to the IRS if the IRS audits you and says, what did you use this money for? If you say, I bought a diamond ring. A diamond ring is not a disability expense, and you're going to have a hard time justifying to the IRS that diamond ring or that diamond tiara or a diamond brooch or any kind of jewelry is a disability related expense. So, and I'm not saying don't buy jewelry. You can buy jewelry, just don't use your ABLE account to pay for those things. Use your ABLE account for what it's for: education, healthcare costs, paying for the activities of everyday living. If you have to have a personal support service, transportation, those things we know are allowable. So that's my advice. If it falls neatly into those categories that I mentioned, you'll be perfectly fine with the IRS. You won't have to worry about them auditing you.
So something such as online business expenses with that?
Absolutely. If that is an absolute. If those business expenses are because of a disability, for instance, Zoom. I mean, if you've got to pay for your Zoom recordings, you can pay for those out of an ABLE account. That's a legitimate business expense. Sure.
How can they receive contributions?
Well, MiABLE has a very cool feature. Number one, we accept contributions through ACH, through a bank transfer. If you use a bank routing number or account number, you can move money very easily between a bank account and an ABLE account. We also have a platform called Ugift, where individuals who have a MiABLE account receive a code that's associated to their account that they can give their family members or teachers or aunts, uncles, grandparents. They provide them that code where they can make a contribution to their ABLE account. So one of the cool things that Michigan allows is anyone who makes a contribution to an ABLE account can give themselves up to a $5,000 income tax deduction on their Michigan income tax return. And a joint couple can claim up to a $10,000 income tax deduction on their Michigan income tax return. So it's a great way for families to help individuals with disabilities by providing them with a crowdfunding option where they can make a contribution to an ABLE account, give themselves an income tax deduction, and help pay for those disability related expenses that they're going to have. So it's a great opportunity because, again, for far too long, families have been told, if you give this person money, they're going to lose their eligibility for the benefits that they need. And that's the last thing we want. We do not want people to lose the eligibility for the programs that they need. We know they need those programs. So we want to give them an opportunity to keep their eligibility for those programs and become financially self-sufficient. And let's face it, at $2,000 in assets, you cannot become financially self-sufficient. You need something else. And whether that's a MiABLE account or a special needs trust or anything along those lines, we want people to utilize what is going to be best for them in their situation.
Amen. Yeah, $2,000 certainly does not go very far.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, $2,000. I mean, and the limit has been the same for like 30 years. Now, $2,000 30 years ago was significant. It's not nearly as significant as it was then, especially today with inflation the way it is. But the bottom line is we want people to have a way to save. And now with an ABLE account, they do.
I think we talked about this earlier. Why was this program not available years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I mentioned earlier, the Michigan ABLE program was enacted in 2016. We were the 5th state of the United States to have a program, and we went live in November. As I mentioned, the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed just over 30 years ago. And we did a great job ensuring that individuals with disabilities have access to public places like, schools and hospitals and museums and libraries. But what the ADA was 800 pages long, 800 pages to say, hey, somebody with a disability should have the same access as anybody else. 800 pages to say basically that. But there was not a provision that talked about the finances of a person with a disability. We have told individuals with disabilities for generations now, stay broke. If you have too much money, you will lose eligibility for the programs that you need. And that is not sustainable. And finally, in 2014, 2015, 2016, we came up with a program that allows people to save without jeopardizing eligibility for the programs that they need. I agree with you, Scott. It was far too long for us to have a program like this. And now we've just got to build it. We've got to build awareness. We've got to let people know that this is something that they can use to take advantage of so that they can save for their financial future and they can become economically self-sufficient and not have to stay broke any longer.
Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you very much for having me. The one thing I will say is, Scott, first of all, I appreciate you reaching out to me and giving me an opportunity to share with your viewers and listeners the MiABLE program. I am always looking for parent groups, disability advocacy organizations, basically anyone who needs to hear the message about MiABLE. Feel free to email us at miable@michigan.gov. If you have any events, any conferences, I'm going to be at the Michigan Special Olympics next week in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Hopefully the weather will hold out for us and we'll have decent weather. Come stop by our booth and help us cheer on the Special Olympians. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Scott and I have lived independently now for 30 years with cerebral palsy. Thank you for visiting my channel Scott in the System. I have a podcast by the same name. I talk to mostly nonprofit services for the disabled community. I also like to talk about being an entrepreneur affiliate marketer. If you would like to be on my podcast, you can email me at scott@scottinthesystem.com. Be sure to visit my website as at www.scottinthesystem.com. Please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel as well. Thank you for dropping by and have a blessed day.